Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting of April 28th, Woodburn City Council to order. We'll start with the flag salute. Councilor Welk, will you please lead us then? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Could we have roll call, please?
Councillor Cornwell.
Present.
Councillor Schaub.
Here.
Councillor Wilk.
Here.
Councillor Cantu.
Here.
Councillor Grijalva.
Here.
Mayor Lonergan.
Here. So with that, I do have an announcement that from Councillor Brizuela, a brief statement that I'll read. I, Lila Brizuela, need to resign my position as a city councilor, Ward 1, due to other commitments. Hope to be able to work with you in the future when my workload decreases. Thank you for your time. I was able to be part of the city councilors team. So I thank Violet for her work on the council, and sorry that she had to leave, but certainly leaving on a positive note, and wish her the best. With that, we do have an open position, which I'm working on. I'm thinking of having a conclave and sending us all up for 15 days until we get some white smoke. See, no, I do have a short list of people that I'm working on with, and appreciate Councilor Cantu that has been part of that. I will have a name by our next meeting that I would look at the council to for a favorable approval on, and we will go forth from there. Any questions? Then a couple other announcements. This weekend is Cinco de Mayo. Chemeketa is hosting it like they always do here in Woodburn. We're expecting a good crowd, good weather, a lot of people, a lot of music, a lot of good food. That'll be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I invite the city of Woodburn and surrounding cities to come on out and have a good time and partake in our local culture. And another announcement is in May, our May council meetings, we have our next meeting is May 12th, I believe. Right? Okay. And our second meeting, it happens to be on Memorial Day. And due to that being a holiday, I'm going to cancel that meeting. And so we will only have one meeting in May, and then move on to two meetings in June. So moving on, we do not have any appointments tonight. I don't have any community or government organizations, do not have a proclamation. So we will sit back and enjoy our presentations. And the first one is Liberty House.
Good evening, Mayor Lonergan and members of the Woodburn City Council. For the record, I am Cameron Wolfer. I am the Assistant Deputy Chief Executive Officer and Marion County Child Abuse Multidisciplinary Team Coordinator. Got through it. With me, and I work at Liberty House Children's Advocacy Center. With me is Allison Kelly, our CEO. Thank you for allowing time on the agenda for us tonight. It's an honor to be with you all here, especially as April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. We at Liberty House appreciate the City of Woodburn and the Woodburn Police Department for being great partners with Liberty House. Your leadership and advocacy for this community made it possible for us to open a clinic a year ago here, and we are grateful. First, for anyone watching tonight's meeting, because of the sensitive nature of the issue, we will be talking about abuse, neglect, grief, and trauma. And if you have or going through that right now, help is available for you, and it is never too late to reach out and seek help. Liberty House is a children's advocacy center serving Marion and Polk counties. As the CAC for this region, we provide specialized pediatric and therapy services for children referred for concerns of physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, witness to domestic violence, trafficking, and other types of trauma. We also provide a wide range of prevention education trainings. Liberty House opened in April 1999, and we have served over 15,000 children in our 26 years. Liberty House is one of 24 CACs in Oregon and one of over 960 across the United States. In 2024, we served over 1,000 children between our clinic and therapy programs and provided prevention education for another 1,500 grown-ups. In 2023 and 2024, Liberty House received 136 referrals for our clinic services involving children from Woodburn. From May 2024 to March 2025, Liberty House has scheduled 75 clinic appointments at its Woodburn campus. All of us who work at Liberty House are committed to helping children and families facing these types of concerns to get the best help possible. At Liberty House, our team of trauma specialists know that trauma doesn't have to have the last word in a child or family's life. With the right intervention, the weight of trauma can be lifted so that children, youth, and families can have a higher likelihood of being safe, strong, and successful. Let me turn this over to Allison to tell us more.
Thank you, Cameron. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you for allowing us to be here this evening with you. We are here tonight with a special presentation honoring the Woodburn Police Department. Allow me to explain. Children who need our services have been through very difficult experiences, which is why there are rigorous national accreditation standards promulgated by the National Children's Alliance, a nonprofit, non-governmental professional organization out of Washington, D.C. The NCA standards were developed by national specialists in medicine, pediatric medicine, social work, and mental health. The standards are really high, and only about half of Oregon children's advocacy centers have achieved accreditation. Liberty House worked very hard for several years, and we were notified in January that we had achieved national accreditation. Because effective response to child abuse reports requires interagency coordination, we wouldn't have been able to meet those standards without the robust involvement of our local law enforcement agencies within the context of the Marion County Multidisciplinary Child Abuse Team, which is a structure set forth in Oregon statute. Your Woodburn Police Department worked energetically with us for many years, contributing substantial hours in helping to improve our model and our approach. And we were really excited when we learned in January that we had become accredited. During the October 2024 site visit, the site reviewers, who had each reviewed over 500 applications in their 20-year careers for accreditation or reaccreditation across the country, told us that Liberty House and the Marion County MDT were among the top 5 they'd ever seen in their entire careers, top 1% across the country. Your Woodburn Police Department played an important role in that. Their commitment to excellence, their focus on children, and dedication to best practices set a powerful example countywide. So Mayor Lonergan, tonight we would like to request Chief Milliken come forward, and we'd like to present Chief Milliken and the Woodburn Police Department and all the detectives we work with on a regular basis with this framed award as a way of saying thank you. Thanks to your commitment to keeping children safe and holding offenders accountable, we know that there is hope for children, and we know that it is never too late to heal. Thank you for all you do in your roles to help keep children in your community safe, and we would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Cameron or Allison?
No, just a comment. Thank you so much for the work that you guys do for our community and our surrounding community and just helping keep our kids safe.
And actually, I was involved in the original planning and work when I was on the Child Care Commission for Oregon. And I just had a vision that we would have a Liberty House in Woodburn, and to actually see it here from way back 1996 when we started the conversations, it's beautiful to see that vision is now a reality here in Woodburn. And so we're very proud to have you here and for the work that you do. We love it. Thank you so much for just that commitment to stick through and to continue to reach out into our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I had the honor a week ago of meeting with Allison and Cameron and their team and going through their facility and seeing the fine work that they do, hearing about the good stories that are happening and some sad stories, obviously, that it does happen, but they talked about the relationship with our police department and how important it is that our officers are trained and recognize symptoms and that we have an outlet here in town to provide that service. So yeah, thank you for your time coming tonight. Thank you so much for what you do. Chief.
Yes, just really quick. Unfortunately, Allison and Cameron are too humble. They are the very reason Liberty House is the way it is. Those two right there.
I believe that.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
Yes.
I guess I would just say as colleagues, I always appreciate the level of professionalism and approachability and the presence in our community. You know, Liberty House really has demonstrated a passion for Woodburn and has gone to extensive lengths to provide resources and services to our community that were not nearly as available or accessible before. And so I just really appreciate your service to our community and appreciate the work that you do and the people you are.
Yes.
Allison, thank you so much.
Thank you. If I may just say, the point is healing. The point is healing. You can
Yeah.
heal, and that's the joy, and that's what puts smiles back on kids' faces.
Just as a personal note, I grew up around this area in Malala, and then during my high school years lived in Woodburn. So this community means a lot to me, and my parents still live here too. So we're your community resource, and thank you for all the time this evening.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda, we were going to have the promotion of Ben Ward in our police department, but that has been canceled till our first meeting in June, with nothing wrong with that, just putting off for a couple of weeks. So next up, we have the Highway 99 pedestrian safety project with ODOT. We do have a staff report.
Hi, Mayor, members of the council. Jenna Berman is here from ODOT. I'm going to give a brief introduction, then turn it over to her. Jenna is our active transportation liaison region. In my time here at the city of Woodburn, she's been very available to the city. She's the person I worked with to secure the Safe Routes to Schools funding for the Woodburn High School, and worked with us to close the funding gap when we had a project that was more expensive than the Safe Routes to Schools could secure. So she brought additional dollars to the table, and I really appreciate that. She's very available to the city, always trying to think of ways to serve our community with limited dollars. Today, she's going to speak about our urban design verification study. This is the Great Streets program. Jenna phoned me and said, I think I have an opportunity for some funding to work in Woodburn, but the funding is limited in what it can serve. So I just wanted to be clear that while she's looking to find buckets to serve ODOT facilities or other projects in Woodburn, many of those projects are limited and can be used for paving, for example. This project in particular has to do with safety improvements, ADA ramps, filling sidewalks. So we know and we hear the community need and request of ODOT facilities for paving, and that's going to continue. But I just want to say that I appreciate Jenna in particular really looking to serve our community. And so with that, Jenna, if you're ready, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Renata.
Yeah, thanks, Renata. I hate not being in the room, but Renata, can you give me like a thumbs up and that you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
And you can see my screen. Yes. How do I get rid of this? Okay. Great. Well, good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. I'm really excited to be here. Like Renata said, I do active transportation, which is just the new term for all things biking, walking, and rolling. One of the other things that I do in my work is talk to customers that get in touch with me about ADA related inquiries or complaints. And I've met some amazing folks in your community and also had a pretty incredible experience working with your police department. So I really enjoyed that earlier presentation because I've also had a really wonderful experience there. So thank you for that. So I'm really excited to be here. I probably always say that to a degree, but really Woodburn, I have 100 communities in this region of ODOT that I cover, and Woodburn is one of my top priorities in the region. And there's various reasons why, but this segment of highway that we're going to talk about today just really kind of rises up with all those measures of safety risks and high numbers of people that are biking and walking and taking transit. And so I'm really hopeful to find some funding to implement some of these things we're talking about today. So let me get into it. Today's agenda, and I'm going to try and be quick because what I really want to do is get some initial feedback from you or just any initial thoughts before we kind of go out to the greater public. So I'm going to tell you why I'm here and what the heck I'm talking about and the kind of early recommendations that we have, and then plan to get your feedback and the public's feedback on, and then the next steps. So this is our study area. And so this is 99E. So this is an ODOT facility, 5-lane highway with a lot going on. And the primary focus area is from Young Street to just north of Jefferson Ave. And historically, this segment, this corridor has been looked at for some crossings already. And so we're bringing those forward to get a higher level of detail and sort of checking to make sure they're in the right place. And so that's why we're doing it today. Renata mentioned Great Streets. That's one of the potential grant programs that I hope will continue. There's a lot that we're waiting to find out in this legislative session. But my hope is that if that grant or funding program continues, there'll be an opportunity for us to be ready once we complete this study to apply for those funds. So that's my goal. I'm going to move on. I always get ahead of myself because I get really excited talking about these. So what is one of a UDV? What are these little studies that we're doing? It's really just a small refinement plan for a particular segment of state highway. We look at all the previous plans that have been done and then sort of bring it forward. So you guys have, for example, a transportation system plan from 2019 that mentioned lots of improvements for people biking, walking, and rolling, but it's not super specific yet. And then there was a pedestrian safety study in 2019 that got pretty specific, but it didn't work through some of the complexities that we're trying to work through right now. And then there's an older study, a highway corridor plan, that also talked about these safety improvements. But again, they weren't worked through to the point of being ready to apply for a project and know exactly or closer to what you think it would cost. So we're coming back, looking at all this previous work, and then seeing if it still makes sense today, making sure that we're putting crossings, for example, or new sidewalk in the right places for the community today, and then getting a really good cost estimate for immediate near-term grant opportunities. So some of the reasons, like I said, that we're here today, you're still experiencing high crash rates in your community. Very unfortunately, there's been a few recently, which is always a tragedy. There's this need for new crossings, more crossings. There's only one in that corridor right now that's an enhanced crossing that has those flashing lights that pedestrians hit. And there's also a lot of missing sidewalks. And so, like I said previously, hoping to get to the higher level of detail and get a really good cost estimate. So this is our study schedule. We're kind of getting toward the end. So we did all that initial work. We've met with the city. We came up with initial ideas based on all that previous work. We looked at it more closely with engineers, and now we're at this kind of third phase of coming to you and going out to the larger community and saying, what do you think? Did we get this right? Do we have crossings in the right places? Are we missing anything or places? What haven't we thought of? So that's where we're at. So I wanted to share with you these initial thoughts, and then it's gonna kind of go bigger and go public. Um, Before I show you the pictures of the locations, I wanted to mention that another reason why we were looking at doing this now is because ODOT also has updated design guidance. And I mean, as I'm sure you know, for a long time we were a highway agency, and the focus was really on just vehicles and getting vehicles through. And as times have gone on and things have shifted, we've become much more focused on all modes of travel and safety. And then when you start to look at data across our region, Woodburn really rises up because of those risks for people biking and walking and taking transit. And so one thing that's not on this slide that I realized later that I should have put that on this slide was that we, as part of this process, we're also taking that earlier work that was done and then sort of overlaying our current design standards, which means that we want to have crossings every, 250 to 500 feet, for example, based on the context. Is it residential? Is it a commercial corridor? Are people going to be likely trying to cross the street because there's a bowling alley over here? So that's the type of thing that we're now looking at when we do these types of plans. So hoping to look at these crossing locations. So and then sidewalk infill. So this is the sidewalk infill. And I know that this is a little nitty gritty, especially for me not being in a room and drawing on a map with you all. But basically those red lines on, this is focused between Young and Lincoln because there's already been sidewalk that's been completed north of there. So this is sort of the south half of our study area. And we really just saw, I mean, as you can see in that picture on the bottom left of the screen, we really saw a lot of gaps in the system. And so there's some real low hanging fruit. And so really we're just looking to say, any particular priority areas, would this sidewalk help you to get around? And those were it was kind of a little bit more general than the crossing locations for the community. So that's the kind of one area of the study that we're focused on. The crossing locations are the tricky part, I think. Sidewalk infill is always tricky because there's things like right-of-way and telephone poles. There's complexities there, and it's always, we have to talk to businesses about, sidewalk in front of their businesses and things like that, and we plan to do that. But at least it's more straightforward of where the gaps are. With crossings, there's a lot of human nature stuff involved. You're really trying to figure out where is development coming, which is so relevant for your community in particular. Holy cow, there's a lot of development coming. And where are residents going to be? And then where do we think they might want to come from and to? So that's hopefully what we'll get out of our public outreach that starts kind of that we'll go over the next few weeks is kind of, where do we want to get from and to, and are these crossings going to meet your needs? So one thing I wanted to be clear about is when I'm talking about the crossing locations, they're all going to have bells and whistles, sort of all these different things. With that 5 lanes of highway out there, you need a lot for it to be safe. And so you have 2 lanes in each direction in the middle turn lane. And so the one that's out there today that was already built is very similar to what we're talking about. The flashing lights, the markings, a pedestrian island in the middle as a refuge, and illumination and signs. So all of those features that you can see down here. The original locations that were looked at in 2017 are where these orange dots are. So starting from the south, kind of somewhere north of Tomlin Ave, somewhere between Blaine and Aztec. And then near James Street, it was actually right near James Street. And then on the north end, somewhere near Jefferson Ave. And then these blue lines, I'm going to show you a closer picture of all of them, but this is us getting into the nitty gritty, getting down on the ground, looking at where driveways are, looking at what turning movements might be, vehicles need to turn into certain places, and trying to come up with options that we think will meet the most needs. These crossing locations, there's always going to be a trade-off. There's always going to be impacts. It's going to impact something, but hopefully you find the best solution that's going to keep pedestrians safe and minimize any negative impact. So let's get to the, before I get into the specific locations, I just wanted to mention this is an overhead flashing beacon. We're looking at these now on our 5-lane sections. The one you have out there today has the poles on the sides and the poles in the middle. That's an option too, but we're also looking at these overhead ones because there's less maintenance costs. So I just wanted to mention that. So the last couple slides are just the crossing locations. So I'm going to take us to the first crossing on the north end, and we'll work our way down. I think that's the order these are in. So the first crossing idea is south of Jefferson Ave, and I spent a bunch of time here watching this. It's really complex. I'm sure you all know that there's a ton of people in the shopping center on the west side of the highway, which would be the top of the screen of Jefferson Ave. And so there's just tons of turning movements. There's a transit stop right here. We checked in with the transit folks. They'd be very happy to kind of have that filled in to a wider sidewalk and just stop in traffic. That's their preference anyway. And it would make pedestrians much more visible that are waiting to cross here. The crossing that we've proposed here is just south of the church, so it wouldn't impact the turning movement. So that's one of the benefits, no restrictions. But it is a little farther away from like Safeway, which is north of here, and farther from Mount Hood, where there's a bunch of stuff, and there might be some right-of-way constraints. It's a little, we might have to put a pole on one side and not on the Burger King side. So there's some trickiness there. The next option in this area that we were going to ask folks about is actually skipping back up to the north of Jefferson Ave. We had to look really hard at like this left-hand turn, these turning movements, for example, coming out and heading north. It looks like I think one car could still get in here, but they couldn't queue up like you see happening, waiting to turn into the shopping center. So that's one of the challenges, that there'd be some limited space for that turning movement. But we thought it might, when we were out there watching it, I saw several people sort of jaywalking to go up towards Safeway. And so I thought it might meet the needs, or we thought it might meet the needs of more people, just the natural, what we call the desire line, right? Humans, when they're walking, have very low tolerance for going out of direction. And you probably have noticed that yourself. And so if where you want to go is up here and the marked crosswalk is down here, you're just not nearly as likely to use it. So that's the northernmost location. When we get down to James Street, we're right in front of Owl's Garden Center here. And if you recall, the original crossing idea was right in front of the center, and there's some concerns about impacting the business. And so I still love from a spacing perspective, the crossing right kind of in front of that garden center really is ideal, but there's a lot of complexities. And so what we were going to the public with was an option that is south of there, and doesn't impact driveways and whatnot. So that's great. There could be, it's getting a little close to the light down south of this, so that cars could get backed up to it. And then the other crossing location is north of there. Some concerns from the city about impacting the turning movements into this apartment complex. And then I had some concerns that it might not meet the needs of the folks living complex depending on where they want to cross. I didn't know if this was the natural, desire line. So again, we have to this one's really complex, so we have to kind of work through that one. But looking forward to getting initial feedback from folks. And I'm almost done. When I go a little farther, we get a little farther south. I feel like this one's kind of and I could be missing something, but I feel like this one's kind of a no-brainer. It's really less complex. There's less driveways impacted and things like that. And we have the opportunity to kind of establish this footprint before that lot on the east side gets developed. So we don't have to worry about the driveways yet. So I like that. And so hopefully it can improve some of that definition, and there's some missing sidewalk in this segment. So I think that this one is hopefully a win and helpful. And you can see there's actually a little walking path right through that property. You can even see it on Google Earth, right? So I'd like to think that that's a clue that would be a good spot for something, for an enhanced crossing. And then the next and the last crossing on our list is, if you recall, there was, one sort of right by Tomlin. This one has a lot of driveways and businesses, and it might require a little bit of consolidating driveways. So there needs to be some follow up there with business owners. We'd have to, but the nice thing is you'd make those entrances and exits really clear. Right now, it's just kind of this open access, and so people can sort of pull in and out anywhere. And so for people biking, walking, or in a wheelchair or that kind of thing, it's hard to know where cars will be coming in and out of. So that alone could provide a lot of safety benefit. But definitely we know there's a lot of popular stuff here, right? So the bars are always popular, and the Woodburn lanes and whatnot. And so this one we'd need to work through some of those questions of driveway access with the community. It could limit left turns onto Tomlin Ave, so that's a question mark. Could limit some other turns, so that's option one. Option two has less impact on the turning movements, I think. And so that is appealing. It's a little tricky to fit in here by the auto shop, but we did do some additional digging in there to see if we thought it could fit and meet standards, and we believe it could, but we'd have to talk to them about it. And it would clarify those entrances and exits, and but there's still going to be some impacts to turning movements. Because you have this 5-lane section, we have this and you have it, we have to have a pedestrian island in the middle to meet the safety standards in order to even build the crossing. Like, that's a requirement. And so that's why we have to work through all these challenging turning movement things. All of the turns, by the way, are still legal movements. You can still turn left, for example, but we want to minimize people stopping in the lanes with the cars, right? And make sure they can scoot in where they can, if possible. So that's the gist of it. That's what we're going out to the public with after visiting with you. We're going to do an online open house where we show all those concepts and then kind of say, hey, what do you think? Are we on the right track? We're also going to be out at the Cinco de Mayo celebration, which is going to be super fun. I'm excited for Sunday. So if you want to come by or send anyone by. And then we still have conversations to have with local businesses and with the transit agency. And then my hope is that, we wrap that up this spring. We revise our concepts based on that feedback. We get really good cost estimates into as best we can. It's a changing landscape, as I'm sure you know, in today's dollars. And then we're ready to either apply for grants, or the city could apply, or we could apply, or if a project comes through, like a paving project, we could potentially leverage onto that project. So those are the two strategies for implementation. And then my contact information. So that is the gist of it. And I don't know totally how much time that we have. Renata, I kind of look to you to maybe let me know if people have questions in the room, or, yeah.
Hi, Jenna. This is Scott Derrickson, the city administrator. I've got just a couple quick questions here.
Great.
The lighting on 99 is pretty poor and it's very dark. And I didn't see any lighting upgrades along the sort of the corridor in town here. That I think has always been a safety concern.
Yeah,
Along that stretch.
yeah.
And then the other point is with the added pedestrian crossings, will there be a decrease in speed to sort of help accommodate people crossing? And then the final question I had is your final comment here about contracting the work is, am I to understand that ODOT is going to do this work, or was it that the city was going to get a grant to do the work, which is not super exciting?
Fair enough. Let me answer those three questions. They're so good. In fact, the first one, I feel like I could have punted to you. I could have asked you to mention it because I forgot to mention it, the lighting. So we're not going out to the public with questions about the lighting. And I was so focused about what we were going out to the public on. I'm going to go back to the map. But that is, we are getting a cost estimate for illumination infill through the corridor. That one's just kind of a given as part of our estimate. So yes, you are on the right track there, and I really appreciate you bringing it up. So that's going to be in there as part of the project idea. Will the crossings decrease speeds? That is such a good question. Here's what I know is that people in cars tend to slow down the more urban an environment feels. So if there's street trees, if there's sidewalks, if there's narrow roads in downtown areas and lots of people moving around, then people tend to slow down. So this is, I feel like these improvements would be a piece of a long-term puzzle to slow traffic. I think that more pedestrian islands through the corridor and more marked crossings and more lighting will help to slow people down. But those types of speed changes, it would be more effective if you also narrowed the car lanes and you also planted street trees and things like that. So one of the suggestions we were talking about for our study was to have the recommendation in there that if and when a paving project comes through, especially that south end, because I think it's in worse condition, that ODOT, and we would do this anyway, looks at narrowing the car lanes as well. Trucks would still be able to get through, but so it's a combination of various things. So I think it'll help a little bit, but more work could help it even more.
Sure. We appreciate any addition of visual cues to slow traffic. We do have a red light camera. on
Yeah,
99.
good.
We could give you a lot of data. You would think that people would slow, but I think that statistics show us pretty consistently, and at least for whatever reason, they don't. I mean, we did have one fatality in the pedestrian crossing
Yes,
this past year. So
right.
you're reducing speeds in addition to other things, I think would be the best of the best choices. And
Yeah.
I appreciate your answer.
Yeah, and enforcement's a huge piece of the puzzle. I just don't want to tell you that you need to do more enforcement, right? That doesn't feel like that's my place,
We
but
wouldn't mind the state police policing their highway more frequently, though. Just for the record.
yeah, that's fair. You and everybody else. Yes. Your last question was a really good one too, which was about who's applying for what here to do implementation. So the immediate opportunity that's coming is this Great Streets opportunity that I'm hopeful for, but no guarantees, right? So ODOT will be pursuing a Great Streets grant with all of this work that we're doing. So that's my first effort, and that's ODOT led, and then it would be ODOT delivered. If we don't get that funding, then we'll talk.
Thank you so much.
You're
Can
welcome.
you clarify, did you say you were going to finish the sidewalks where, the sidewalks aren't finished? Is that part of this project too? You did say
Correct.
that, right?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Okay.
Is there a particular area that you think is a priority
Well,
that comes?
actually, we walk up and down that highway, so I'm really pleased to hear that those sidewalks are going to be put in, but I'll wait for the open comments and I'll review it better.
Sounds good.
So Mayor, if just some additional comments, and you may have comments yourself for Jenna, again, before going public with a survey that Marcella will push out and ODOT will have folks at on May 4th at the Cinco event. We wanted to just present to you before we start collecting data to let you know that this work is starting. This is completely ODOT led, so they are funding this work. but
Mhm.
they are engaging with the city. So Public Works, Planning, Jim have all been very involved in giving feedback. But we
Will-
haven't
Will
started.
we be hearing from Public Works on their opinion on?
And they've
What
been
should be-
engaged, kind of giving feedback to ODOT's consultant on this and will continue to. So beyond staff time, right, there's no financial contribution at this point. We haven't decided on application. We always come to you
Right.
to support that. So ODOT's leading this, but yes, staff time providing feedback on this ODOT-led project is occurring, and you might have comments. I will note that ODOT has verbally confirmed that any of these improvements on their facility will not be turned over to the city to maintain. That's a concern, especially when we're talking about rapid flashing beacons that can get damaged or electrical. So they have, before we're funding any construction, we've had those conversations with ODOT about don't put in improvements that you're going to turn over to the city that we then financially have to maintain. This is your facility. So that was kind of the first conversation we had. And yeah, I think that's it. Any next steps after design, feedback from the public, from the property owners would come back to council for a decision.
Oh, before we move on from this presentation, we do have two members, the owners of Owl's Garden Center that I'd love to hear from, Darcy and Mark. If you don't mind come up and sharing your opinions on the project. Good evening. It's good to see you. Thank you for all you guys have done for so many years in Woodburn.
Yeah. Mayor Lonigan and council members, we appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak to you. This is obviously a project that's near and dear to our heart. We've been in the same location for 77 years here in Woodburn. Our grandfather started the business and we're the third generation owners now. So this has a profound impact, where the location of these, where they're going to be. I'm glad to hear that there is time for public comment. I do just encourage you as a city council to realize that while, it's just one or two businesses that might be impacted, the impacts can be immense. We've seen some of the proposals on the earlier ones. I'm glad to see that some of them have changed, but they could still have quite an adverse effect on our business and any business up and down the highway. So just ours, for instance, I know there are others that are much larger than us. We have over 100,000 people coming to visit us a year. And so what might seem like a mild inconvenience really can make a huge impact on our business. So we just really encourage you to engage. I mean, we understand the need for the safety. I mean, it is a busy street and cars do go fast. It is difficult to get in and out, and I can understand the need for pedestrian safety. I used to run across the street to McDonald's when it was there, and that was not safe. So I get it. But yeah, just please remember the businesses because it can have a profound impact on us.
Good point. Thank you.
And we do encourage you to come out. Please come and visit us and actually look at what they're going to do or what they're trying to do in front of our business. There were 3 different options and all of them would be a no deal for us. And we would be done.
Darcy, could you just briefly mention what the impact is that you see to your business, specifically what's causing the impact?
Sure. Yeah. So do you want to?
Sure. A lot of it has to do with the convenience of getting in and out. So it is a busy highway. That turning lane is very necessary for both cars coming in and trying to get out into traffic. It was very difficult to get across 2 lanes plus the middle lane to get into that third lane of traffic. And so you kind of need that refuge lane. And many of these locations took away that refuge lane. We have semis coming in and out. It's not just cars and pickups. We like pickups and trailers, but so it's difficult to get customers in and out. And if they don't feel that they can do that safely, they won't visit us. There's other places to go, and it just definitely will reduce our traffic and impact us.
Jenna, can you respond how you work with businesses during the construction phase?
Yeah, well, I can't speak as much as during construction. I mean, during the initial phase, this planning phase, we have, and I think that we took the concepts that we took to you all, and I'm sorry I'm not there to meet you guys in person. I did offer to come up and meet with you, and I'm still happy to do it. That we can show the turning. So we actually have a program where we can choose like a certain size of vehicle and test it and see how the turn and whether or not the turn would be doable. So you could take a big truck, for example, and make sure that there's enough room. So I think we had those on the concepts that we showed our friends there at the garden center. And so I think that analysis should help to show what the impacts would be. Was that helpful to you all?
We did see those and we
Okay.
greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Although we might have differing opinions in real life
Yeah,
than on the drawing. So
Yes.
further conversations would be greatly appreciated.
that
And the
sounds good.
Trucks are much larger than the 40-foot or actually 53-foot.
Okay, so it sounds like we should run you get design vehicles from you or know what size you're talking about and then run those. But those other two concepts that I showed, like south of yours and north of yours, you were open to those two concepts, I understand.
One to the immediate south is still a little bit close. On
Mhm.
drawings, it looks one way, it's not in real life. So again, would love to have you come down and walk through it.
Sounds
and
good.
Look at those options. Sure.
Yeah, sounds good. And I also I want to reconcile that against what we hear from I believe that's like a 400 unit apartment complex that's just north of you. So that's a lot of folks potentially, biking, walking, taking transit. So that's what I was hoping we could figure out.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that, Jenny.
Any other questions from the council?
I have a comment.
Comment?
I just really applaud ODOT's effort here to improve pedestrian safety on 99. I walk 3 to 5 miles a day. Many of those miles are on Highway 99. I live on Blaine Street. I know this area intimately. And it is very dangerous for pedestrians. And we have a lot of pedestrians in
Yeah.
Woodburn. So whatever we can do, and my dentist comes from those new apartments, and they always tell me how many times a day they see dangerous pedestrian crossings, the new apartments are just trying to get across the street
Yeah.
in that area, because there really is no safe place to cross. So whatever can be done, I appreciate the open comment. I appreciate that you'll carefully consider all of the comments that you receive, but I'm just really excited. I'm excited for the lighting improvements, for the sidewalks that don't exist now, and of course, some additional pedestrian safe crossings would be fantastic.
Great. Thank you for that.
And by the way, my wife was at Al's this morning, but she drove.
I believe we can find a way for you to walk safely and her to go to Al's. I think we can do this.
And I wanted to touch on what our city administrator was talking about earlier, the red light issue at the intersection of 214 and 99. Do you get the statistics of that? Do you synchronize your pedestrian crosswalks with the number of speeding cars and those that are running the red light through there?
I don't get that. I don't get that data. I see all the data, unfortunately, around crashes, fatals, and serious injuries. And so I see all of that data, but our traffic engineers probably see the data you're talking about.
Yeah, it's alarming that the number that we have. Crashes
Yeah.
actually are down at that intersection but cars definitely are still running it and at
Yeah.
elevated speed.
Yeah. And I just want to say this is not at all to take away from your concerns for your community, but this is a national epidemic that we're seeing, and
Yeah.
it's been increasing, and then COVID, people went sort of crazy, and then it hasn't come down, and so we're really seeing high rates of traffic violence, and it's disproportionately impacts people that are biking and walking and taking transit. So it's happening everywhere, unfortunately. So, but this community, like I've said, is really kind of hits all the marks and is a high priority. So I'm really hoping we can get some improvements there. But I feel like there's a real, I can't do, there's an education piece and then there's an enforcement piece. And
Right.
so those have to be a part of it too. But I wish I had the magic bullet for you on those, but I don't.
Well, thank you for making Woodburn a priority right now and the crosswalks. And we will continue to go forward and work. We have a good staff. It sounds like working with you.
Yeah,
So,
you do. It's been great. Yes, you do.
Okay.
Thank you.
okay, thank you. Okay,
Great. We'll be back.
okay.
Thank you.
Good discussion, just beginning, but yeah, a lot more that we want to know. So moving on, the next presentation is Farm Worker Housing Development, FHDC.
Mr. Mayor, as I approach the chairs, I'd like to just quickly introduce this subject, if I may. Last week, we met with Farm Worker Housing Development Corporation to talk about the city council's goal to develop the Young Street property into a affordable housing complex, utilizing a partnership and a collaboration with FHDC. Conversation, I think, was really good and sort of sets the stage for this conversation. One of the things we discussed at the meeting we had was sort of what are the next steps after tonight. And what we anticipated would be that the city council would ask FHDC to return to the council with a formal proposal on what the project concept and design is, what they intend to build on that particular site, and the funding. Is it a fundable, buildable project? Then the other issue I wanted to make sure that we resolved tonight was issue of site controls. I'm not an expert in affordable housing funding. Luckily, we have people here who are. And I know that the funding cycles may not align with the design phase of the project, and there may be an interest in wanting to start that process sooner than later to meet the various cycles that that are available to FHDC. So the idea of site control and whether or not we can work out an agreement to make a commitment tonight that the project would be dedicated for this particular project to the point that it could support a funding application is something I think we also need to resolve at the conclusion of this particular presentation. And so, well, with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it over to our FHDC representatives.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Lonergan and council members. I am Carmen Fernandez. I'm the Housing Development Manager for Farm Worker Housing Development Corporation. We're going to shorten that to FHDC to save myself a whole lot of words tonight. Also here with me is Jorge Alvarado. He is our Programs and Asset Building Manager. He'll talk a little bit more about the programs that FHDC offers to our residents and community. So I'm going to get started with this slide here. It says it all. We've been here in Woodburn for more than 30 years. 1991, we were founded here in Woodburn. I believe one of our council members here was actually one of our founding members as well.
Close to that. I came in shortly. I was a cheerleader for years.
So this is home. This is home for us. We have grown tremendously over the past 30 years. We are now in 3 counties, 8 cities, and 12 properties, with 2 more funded projects coming into construction this year. We are doing very well. Being a nonprofit with the current governor has been a very good position for us. The ORCA process has been very well, very, how do I put this? We've been well situated for the funding cycles that have come through and have been available to us. So with that, I'm very happy to announce that this is the biggest pipeline that FHDC has had in its history. We are working very hard. We are augmenting our staff and we are continuing to grow. And that's a great thing to be able to say in this day and age. Can we get the next slide, please? So back in 1991, these are the sites, these are the living conditions that were on farm. The black and white photos on the left hand of the screen. On the right are our current living conditions. These are our current properties. We have community gardens, we have after-school activities, we have playgrounds, we have music lessons. We provide all of these services to our families. Next slide, please. I touched a little bit on this. We were established in 1991. We have currently 480 units. Of those 480 units, 164 of those are here in the city of Woodburn. We currently have, with the projects that we have funded, we have another 100 units that will be coming online in 2026. So that brings us to 580. The goal is to get us to 775 by 2028. So I am still always looking for new projects. We are currently concentrated here in Woodburn at our Nuevo Amaneced property. That is our largest property here in Woodburn. It has 4 separate phases. So that is the bulk of our properties here in Woodburn, but we also have Esperanza Court right across the street and Q. If you were familiar with Q, it's Colonia Unidad. That property was purchased from the city back in, I believe it was 2018. And that was actually our first property where we went away from farm worker housing only. We are now serving not only the farm worker community, but low-income families. So even though we do set-asides on our properties for farm workers still, we are no longer solely focusing on farm worker housing. The reasoning behind that is that we have a lot of people that are moving out of the farming industry, and they're afraid of losing their housing if they go to work at a grocery store. We feel like it shackles them and they get into a position where they don't have any options. So this was a way for us to move away from having to tell people they have to move out of our properties if they're not farm workers. I think it's been a great benefit. Again, Colonia Unidad was our first property where we did this, but I built 116 units in the city of Lebanon that was completed in 2023. That is also workforce housing, and we are at capacity on that project or on that property, and we run about a 97% vacancy on that, or 90% occupancy on that one, not vacancy. On that note, I'm going to hand this off to Jorge so he can talk to you a little bit about our services that we offer. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Carmen. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. So my name is Jorge Alvarado, and I am the program manager for FHCC, and I am responsible for managing the programs that benefit residents and also the community at large where our properties are. So one of the things that I want to mention first is that we build programs based on our mission. And part of our mission, part of the slogan is housing is just the beginning. And so with that, there's also services that we provide to the residents as well as to the community at large. So some of the areas that we focus on is the education part. We offer English classes, computer classes. We also offer financial literacy classes, not only for residents, but for anyone from the community. We also do health services. We're able to bring in on-site services, just as mental health services, as well as dental clinics to our communities. Food security, that's another big thing. We do have community gardens, and some families utilize that to provide vegetables for their daily consumption. And then asset building. So the asset building department is responsible for working with families to become self-sufficient and be ready when they move out of affordable housing. And so one way that we do that is by offering monthly financial literacy classes on budgeting and credit. We also have a home ownership program that guides the families from point A to the end of achieving home ownership. Those services are free of charge, And so the other program that we offer, it's an ID8 account. I'm not sure if you're familiar with an ID8. It is an individual development account, and it's a matching program where once the family saves, let's say $1,000, we're able to match that 3 times, and so they'll be getting $3,000 plus the $1,000 that they save. They'll be able to use that towards down payment or to build their own to start their own business. And so that's something that we have been done for the last 2 years, and we continue to offer those services to our residents and families around our communities. Next slide. Thank you. And so just to touch on some of the highlights of what we do have 24 community partners. We don't do this alone. There's 24 community partners that work with us on a daily basis to bring services to the families. We also offer case management. So families are able to work with our case managers to meet their needs, whether it's a need for rental assistance or for utility bills. And so we do have that option for our residents. We also do food boxes. We do have after-school programming for kids. And so right now we have 85 kids enrolled in after-school program throughout our communities. And then we have about 120 classes that we have done in the last year. Next slide, please. And this is the asset building department. So one of the last year we had a partnership with the state, with Oregon Housing Community Services, to offer homeowners assistance to avoid foreclosure prevention. And so last year, the last 2 years, we were able to assist 160 families from Marion County to avoid foreclosure prevention. Out of the 160 families, 152 families were able to receive a forgivable loan to stay in their homes. And so it's a 5-year loan that is forgiven after 5 years. And so that's a really good number. We're thinking about, families that could potentially be homeless. We have done also mortgage ready classes. And so we have 16 families who are ready to start looking for homes. And this is because of our homeownership program that we offer, the counseling part. And then we do the classes. So 102 families have completed the ABCs of Home Buying, which is the name of our class. And then we have done so far 13 sessions on homeownership. So it's when we say that a home is just the beginning, these are the resources and the connections that our families are able to have in order for them to become self-sufficient once they start thinking of becoming homeowners.
Gomez is our Director of Operations for Evolve Workforce, and she was not able to join us tonight. So I'm going to touch briefly on this. This is not my specialty, but I will say that I am the luckiest developer in all of Oregon because I have property management in-house. I can walk 2 doors down from my office and say, hey, I have a problem, instead of trying to chase my property manager for 6 months, trying to get them to respond to an email. So I do count myself as one of the luckiest people in development in Oregon for that. In 2016, we decided we needed to focus property management on culturally specific communities, being both farm worker and the Latinx community. There was a serious lack of resources available for those communities. I think we have done an excellent job of bringing that not only to our communities, but in 2022, I believe, we expanded that to create Teach, which is a workforce program where we are teaching not only our residents, but community members about property management. And they're getting certificates and they're being placed in jobs within property management. So I think it's an excellent resource. I think it's something that I'm very proud of that we are doing in-house. I don't know of anyone else that is doing it. And I have to tout our horn because it really is a huge bonus to me to be able to know that my team is always on it. So I think that's all I'm going to say. We gave you a lot of information in the slides that you can review there. I do want to talk a little bit about the Young Street property. I do not have a slide for it. I apologize for that. But we are looking at this site to address, again, affordable housing needs here within the city. We all know that the city of Woodburn is growing by leaps and bounds, and with Amazon coming in, and there's definitely a housing need here within the city. We believe that the Young Street site is an easy site to activate to an active community. Everything is already there. We know utilities are there. We know everything is already set. We believe it'll be an easy project to get through OHCS for a funding application. I don't have any specifics on that currently, what we're working on. That will take me a few weeks to get that information together. We're working with an architect now to review the plans that the city has already approved for that site. I believe there was a 94-unit complex already approved for that site. It does not work for our needs. For OHCS requirements, there will need to be some tweaks and changes, but we are currently working on that with an architect to make those
Can you
changes.
explain why that plan does not work?
There's a few different things. OHCS has square foot minimums for the unit sizes. So you can't go under a certain square footage for a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom. There were studios within that design, which we as FHDC have a hard time renting studios. We try to stay away from them in general, especially with reduced income AMI levels at 50%. Renting a studio can be very, very difficult. The income levels drop significantly for studios. So there's a few different issues that we're looking at there. I won't rule them out altogether. I understand that with Amazon coming on board, we are going to need smaller units. I just don't think studios are the best investment.
Okay.
So, and again, we typically specialize in family units. 2- and 3-bedroom units are where we are really good at providing our services. Not only the housing, but our resident services, our asset building services, our property management. That's our specialty. That's where we're really good at what we do.
What about transitional housing?
Transitional housing, we have set aside in our Salem property, Colonia Libertad, for domestic violence units. That I believe there's 16 units that are set aside for domestic violence there. And we would look at doing something similar here in Woodburn.
Okay.
I believe Meg was in conversations with a couple of organizations about getting an MOU in place today, but I cannot confirm that at the moment. So.
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask quickly, so moving forward from tonight, and we could offer up the city's staff, planning department, public works if necessary, to sort of help in the development of kind of a formal proposal that could be approved by the council. What's your timeline on that kind of on that work?
It will take the architect a couple of weeks to get up to date and get me some drawings that are worth looking at this point. Right now, I'm just spitballing with the architect saying, okay, this is what we're thinking. Show me how many units you can get on this site.
Yeah, I think that the planning department, our planning director, Chris, is here tonight, but planning probably should be involved with your architect and looking at the changes in the site plan, and we're happy to help with that. The other question I have too is that when we met, we talked briefly about site control and needing to make guarantees in order to accommodate funding. What is it? And you had a meeting the next day and
Did not get clarification from OHCS yet. I'm
Okay.
still waiting on clarification back.
What would that look like? Is that some sort of contract and that? And
I
that-
can imagine a contract would be sufficient, saying that the intent is the city to
Yeah,
whatever agreement we come to should be sufficient for OHCS for a funding application.
and I think and you can please tell me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that assuming that everything just goes swimmingly and that everything falls into place probably a year out from breaking ground at the best.
If I were to put in a 4% application with OHCS currently, which is the funding
And
application.
who's OC?
OHCS is Oregon Community Housing Services.
Oh, thank you.
If I was to put in a 4% application, which is the current funding cycle that is open, I would expect to hear back in June if I were to submit this month, in July at the latest. And then from moving from selection to award from the Housing Stability Council, we have 1 year to have a shovel-ready project. So it's a quick
Okay.
timeline that
Yes.
that OHCS is working with now. I think it's a benefit to us.
Yeah.
It doesn't hold us up. And so far, so good. I don't want to curse myself, knock on wood. My projects are all moving forward, but yes, it's a very quick process now. Once you have an approved application, it's a 12-month cycle to construction.
One of the issues that I've been asked about, it has to do with the railroad,
Oh,
the
yeah.
tracks right there. And how would you intend on grappling with that?
OHCS about that. We reached out and we were told that that is a very rarely used track, maybe once a week. And when I brought that issue to OHCS, they said it would not be an issue on the funding application.
Does that mean that they will support putting fencing along there as we're planning to do in the other parts of the railroad?
I would not see an issue with that from
And is it
OHCS's
included in
standpoint.
the initial design now?
It is not. I have not.
Could it be included?
It could be included. Right now, I've got parking up there.
Yeah, but I would like to see.
A fence, yes,
Yes.
yes.
But just this is
Yes.
not the Union Pacific track.
No, I know, but,
I cannot recall the last time I actually
Right.
saw a frame
but we're
Oh,
gonna have families,
past the site. And
Correct,
it's-
yeah.
Yeah.
but we're gonna have families in that
Yep,
unit
yep.
who may have friends across the street in the other
And we don't
apartments.
want the
I
kids running
anticipate
across the
that
track.
kids are going to want to do that. They're not, that's not happening now, but once it gets developed,
Right.
it's going to create a natural path. So if we're ahead of it,
Yeah.
I would rather do, and if we can include it in the design, I'd rather be proactive than later saying, oh, we should have put up that fence.
Quick comment. So this is meant for the community of Woodburn and all citizens that are, and there's many low income. And I'm a little concerned or misunderstand that you're going to have minimal 1-bedroom apartments, and that limits, say there's a married couple or a single woman or man or roommates or something that don't need additional bedrooms, but they can't afford, that larger size. And I think you're putting a limiting factor on the purpose of this by not.
The
including
square
ours.
footage for a studio unit that approved by OHCS is 400 square feet. Whereas a 1-bedroom, the square footage, I believe, starts at 700 square feet. I would not want to build a 400 square foot unit. It just does not make sense to build units that small. They don't improve the community. They take up space that is better used for a 1-bedroom for a couple versus a single person in a studio. That's unfortunately been our experience on other properties.
So there are some 1-bedroom.
They are 1-bedrooms. Yes, there will not be exclusively 2 and 3, but studios are the ones that I would not really want to include in
No,
the
I
design.
I was more concerned that there weren't any one.
No, there will be 1-bedrooms, just no studios. I'm trying to do away with the studios if possible. Again, they're just very small, very hard to rent, especially when you have a limited income situation on 400 square feet.
How long did it take you to, from start to finish on the Lebanon project?
That happened during COVID.
Mm,
That project started in 2019 and completed in 2023, but it was right smack in the middle of COVID when they started
everything,
construction.
yeah. What do you anticipate from start to finish here?
For the City of Albany project, I have a 12-month timeline from groundbreaking, and then 4 months for the finance closing and project transition. So it's about 16-month process. So overall, we're looking at 2 to 2.5 years from
Right.
funding application.
Any comments, questions from the council? No. Well, thank you. We are, as you can tell, we're very excited about this project.
Yes, we are.
Glad
We're very excited to partner with the city.
we can partner with you and hope that all that works out.
Yes.
Wish you the best. Put it together.
And Mr. Mayor, just to clarify before we wrap up the presentation, the council, just by consensus tonight, would understand if the city attorney worked out an agreement that guaranteed site control and project for funding purposes. I could sign that. You'd be okay with that. And then we'll bring back the proposed project as it's been designed and kind of work to planning when it's ready to the city council to approve, then we'll move forward.
I
For the
don't think I
permanent-
can do the May 15th or May 12th date, but June. I
Well,
can
we'll be ready
definitely.
when you're ready. So, I mean, I think that's really fast, but
I believe in June, we should be able to come back. with the
thank you so
project.
much.
I will
Thank
let you
you.
know. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Carmen.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Moving on to business. Next up is business from the public. This allows the public to introduce items for council consideration that's not already scheduled on the agenda. If anyone from the public would like to speak to the council on any item that's not on the agenda, please come up. We do limit that time to 3 minutes. Not seeing anybody, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Items listed on the consent agenda are considered routine and may be adopted by one motion. Any item may be removed by discussion at the request of a council member. Could we have the city recorder please read the items that are on the consent agenda?
The items on the consent agenda are as follows. Woodburn City Council minutes of April 14th, 2025. Acceptance of a public utility easement at 1776 Newburgh Highway and the monthly financial report.
Council feel like pulling anything off, then I would entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moving seconded, all in favor, signify with an eye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We do not have any table business. Next up, we do have a couple public hearings. I will open the public hearing on the Community Development Block Grant, COVID-19 funding closeout for emergency housing assistance. Open up to our staff report.
Hi, Mayor, council members, very short public hearing on this. This is procedural from Business Oregon on a community development block grant award. We were required to hold a first public hearing when we submitted the application, and now that we're ready to close out the project and funds have been expended, we're required to hold a second public hearing. The city was awarded $450,000 in community development block grant funds in May 2024 with the intent to aid our region in rent, utility, and mortgage assistance programming for income qualifying persons and households. The city did extend invitations to Jervis and Hubbard to participate in this application. Both communities provided letters of support, and that actually meant that we were able to access a little more dollars in CDBG. I'm going to turn this over to Yanira and Jesse, who were more familiar with actual direct assistance to the property owners. But I will say that this is the last of Business Oregon's COVID response dollars. So the funds were intended to assist persons impacted by COVID, financially, job losses, health reasons. It was Business Oregon that reached out to the city of Woodburn after they had, similar to the city having the last of their ARPA dollars needing to be expended. Business Oregon had funds to be expended, and they were so pleased with the work that the city had previously done that they reached out to us and said, "You're very efficient. in outreach and the model that the city had developed to help Business Oregon get these dollars out. So we were very fortunate to get additional dollars, and it's the work that Jesse and Yanira did. So.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilor members. I'm Yanira Herrera, Community Relations Manager in the Community Services Department. Over the past couple of years, we've had the opportunity to run a rental utility mortgage assistance program. It started in 2020 during the COVID pandemic by receiving that community development block grant through Business Oregon. And we've noticed that there's a very high need for this type of assistance in the area. So since 2020, we've given out a little over $1 million in assistance to over 380 households in the Woodburn, Jervis, and Hubbard area. The first cycle was in 2020 to early 2022. It was run by Marisela, serving 161 families, giving just over $396,000. Seeing that there was still a need, our administration got creative and was able to convert the HUD Housing Rehabilitation Funds to launch another cycle of assistance. This was in partnership with Dev Northwest and served 93 families and gave out about $360,000 in assistance. And then in our most recent cycle, we've served 129 families and provided 392,000 direct financial assistance.
Okay.
Happy to answer any question.
So does council have any questions on? It's been a very good project. We know we've given a lot out. I went on your notes. It says that the assistance ranged from $60 to over $8,000. We actually gave somebody $8,000 over that at one time for mortgage payment when we could have split that up and paid 5 people something instead of 1.
So with the program, we're able to assist up to 6 months of back rent, mortgage, or utilities, so that the bigger numbers are multiple months of rental or mortgage assistance.
And an important component of this and part of the requirements was to bring the tenants current. So you couldn't just kind of help them limp along. It had to bring them fully current, whether that was utility bills, mortgage, rental, whatever that case was. And so that's why you see some of those larger amounts that were from that case. So.
Okay.
And Mayor, if I didn't know Marcella's work in developing the program and Dev Northwest. So we contracted with them for their assistance. They provided office hours here. I just wanted to add that today I received the monitoring. So Business Oregon came and monitored the files, and it was the organization of Dev Northwest and Yanira that we received a clear monitoring report, meaning no findings and no concerns. And so it's nice to have in the city's record on that.
Yeah, and I have to take a moment to brag about people. So between Marcella and Yanira, Marcella really helped establish that first round, first program, and creating the processes and clear path where we were actually the model when they tried to implement this in other communities. And the reason that Business Oregon came back to us was because other communities weren't as successful as we were, not only creating the processes and following those processes, but reaching out to our communities. And we found we tried to originally partner with some nonprofits, and they just struggled with the implementation piece. And just like we do with a lot of our programs, we really looked at it as a grassroots effort, and we started reaching out to property managers directly. And that's where we started to see a lot of success, because obviously the property managers are the ones that are first knowing when someone is delinquent on their payments. And so they were actually helping their tenants, because obviously there was a benefit to them too, but they're helping their tenants get to our doors so we could help facilitate. And to Yanira and Maricella's credit, even though Dev Northwest helped run the past 2 programs, I would say that 50% of the work, Yanira was still helping facilitate tons and tons of people with either helping Dev Northwest, but also just people who would come throughout the week when Dev Northwest was not here, and having to hear really challenging stories from families, whether it was a fatality from COVID, whether it was job loss, whether, whatever these cases. And so to handle those situations and handle with so much care and with our community members cannot be celebrated enough by Maricela and Yanira, who did that. So I just wanted to call them out specifically and the amazing job they did with the program.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you to the team.
I'd just like to comment that I just really want to thank staff and Dev Northwest for bringing us this program. You know, Woodburn has a lot of lower income households that are working households. They're farm workers, they're other manual laborers that did not have the luxury of working from home during COVID. And so, and they were very, you know, as businesses closed, they lost work. And so we are fortunate that we were able to keep people in their housing during this time. And I appreciate your work.
Thank you. So we have no decision, just the hearing.
I don't believe so.
Thank you, Renata.
Close the hearing.
Hearing is closed. Thank you. Moving on, we have another hearing, annexation of approximately 32 acres of territory in South Woodburn. And we will have a decision on that one. You're up. Open the public hearing.
There we go.
Okay, do we have any declarations, potential conflicts of interest? Any of you own any of that property out south? No. Do you know any buyers out there? Site visits, we all have driven by it a million times. I'll give you that. Any challenges from anybody? No. Moving on, and we'll hear the public hearing statement. Comes.
Both Oregon law and the Woodburn Development Ordinance govern evidentiary quasi-judicial land use hearings and require that at the commencement of the hearing, this statement be read to all persons in attendance. The applicable substantive criteria for this land use decision are listed in the staff report and are as follows. Transportation System Plan, TSP Figures 2 and 6, TSP Project R29, South Arterial, and Woodburn Development Ordinance, WDO 1.02, 1.03, 1.05, 2.01, 2.02, 3.01, 3.02, 3.04, 3.05, 3.08, 4.01, 4.02, 5.03.10, 5.04.01, and 5.04.04. The hearing will proceed in the following general order: staff report, applicant's presentation, testimony in favor of the application, testimony in opposition to the application, rebuttal, closure of record, deliberation, and decision. All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the applicable substantive criteria just stated or other criteria in a plan or land use regulation that the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise a constitutional or other issue relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Any party wanting a continuance or to keep the record open must make that request while the record is open.
Okay, we'll move on to the staff report.
I'll introduce Colin Cortez, our senior planner, while he brings that up for us.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. My name is Colin Cortez. I'm senior planner with the city, and I have the honor of presenting to you on this agenda item, potential annexation and subdivision, known as the Mill Creek 2 subdivision. The Planning Commission had held a hearing to make a recommendation to you as a body. And that commission recommends approval with some modified conditions, modified from what staff had originally proposed. And as a formality, I'll take a moment to note that the staff reports, attachments, and written testimony received so far are all part of the record for your consideration. As far as public testimony, no one from the public testified. There were no calls or emails. No one came to the commission hearing. And I do have one exhibit from the applicant that came in today that I will pass around the time the applicant will introduce the applicant's team. It concerns a required median. The project involves a segment of the South Arterial that I'll talk about a few slides onward. The property itself is about 32.2 acres. It was a farm. It's along the east side of South Boones Ferry Road, and it's also along the south side of the Boones Crossing subdivision. And the proposal is for subdivision to 130 lots. More specifically about where's the site, this image shows street boundaries and parcels. The parks are green for orientation. This reddish area is City Hall, where we are now. And you can see at the bottom south, the large purple area, that is the property in question, 32 some acres. This slide shows on the left the zoning context. If annexed, the property would have the same single-family zoning in yellow seen to the north and east. And on the right, you can see an aerial view of the property. Again, it was a farm. Very few, if any, natural features left. And this is a close-up of that same image. Again, you'll see South Boones Ferry Road on the left, on the west. On the east, you'll see some large rural homesteads along the south dead end of Brown Street. And to the north, you see what's developed within the Boones Crossing subdivision. As far as existing conditions on the ground, if you were standing on Boones Ferry Road looking east-southeast, this is what you would see. And if you were standing along Boones Crossing, along what exists of the South Arterial today on the left, you'd see more of what was the farm field. As far as what's proposed, you see here a comparison of the aerial view on the left with the subdivision plan on the right, with the streets colored in gray. And it's pretty much straightforward for a subdivision. The main through streets besides the South Arterial, which is called East Traverse Road, and Boones Ferry Road, would be two streets continuing from Boones Crossing, Iris Street and Dahlia Street. And this is a larger view of that same area. And again, you can see Iris Street coming in as well as Dahlia. As far as process, as I mentioned, the commission held a hearing and recommends approval with modified conditions. The property is in the urban growth boundary for the city. It's eligible for annexation, meets the general criteria. And as far as the request for subdivision, the 130 lots and the several tracks generally meet what's required with some conditions. And again, I emphasize that the commission recommends approval with conditions. Anticipating what the applicant is going to be talking about later tonight. This is an excerpt of the development ordinance showing the origin of the median that's required in the South Arterial, East Traverse Road. The image in the note that comes from the development ordinance at bottom, again, are what are the basis of the median requirement. And that requirement is captured in a condition that is proposed on the staff report for this annexation and subdivision. More specifically, the top image is a copy of an image from the staff report and condition, showing in green the general location of where the median would be. It's confined to the easterly part of the road along the development within 2 blocks. And I'll use the cursor to indicate that even though there are 5 north-south streets, Boones Crossing was built out so that 3 of the streets have dead ends with bollards that are made passable only for fire trucks. So the general public can't drive in and out of the streets. That means Iris and Dahlia are really the only streets open to public vehicles. And so that's why the median is a large extent between Iris and Dahlia, with a second median over at the east. And at the bottom again, you see the aerial to give you an idea of where the median would be in space. Giving a little more details, the image on this slide is from a similar subdivision by the same applicant, Icon Construction and Development, Mill Creek Meadows, which is being platted to the east, around 1490 Brown Street. The civil plans have just been issued by the Public Works Department, and this is an excerpt of the sheet showing the condition that was the median that was conditioned for that project. It gives you a very good idea of what a median for this project, Mill Creek 2, would look like. And before we introduce the applicant, I would be happy to answer any questions the councilors might have.
Have any questions about the development or annexation?
I do have one question about the median, maybe two questions. So the portion of the median that's under consideration would be the portion on this side. I have my directions are skewed. The green, that's already been developed on that side of the street. Is that correct, or?
Yeah, roughly the northerly half of the road is built. So there's curb on the north and then an extent of asphalt.
So this would be on the south side that we're talking about?
The developer for this project would build the other half of the street and then rework a little bit of the pavement to incorporate the median.
And so the median would be on the side of the road? Would there be a median strip in the middle?
Roughly the
between
middle.
lanes as well?
It would be in the middle. It would divide the westbound lane and the eastbound lane.
Okay.
If I could just add one comment, you've seen me before you a lot talking about the South Arterial, right? And the importance of the South Arterial, how we pick it up as properties come in. That traverse is that South Arterial, just to be clear that that's the same one piece that we're talking about. The initial pieces that came in from Icon, the same developer. That's the one that staff is proposing, and consistent with our TSP and WDO, that they have the grass median in the center where appropriate.
Yeah, thank you. Move on. We have testimony by the applicant.
It's two chairs this time.
Hello, Council. I am Hayden Wooten, Senior Land Use Planner with Amerio Design. And with me tonight, I have Harlan with Icon Construction and Development. I would like to start by thanking Colin for his report. He has addressed everything I would hope to. Really quickly, the project with the conditions, we'll talk about the median being the exception, meets the applicable design criteria. And so really tonight, I'd just like to make myself available for any questions the council might have. Marlon, I believe you would like to talk about the median.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors, and wanted to also thank Colin and all of the staff that we've been working with in a collaborative way on this project. Really, the only thing that this exhibit is intended to show you, when we met with the Planning Commission, they modified the condition for the median that it should meet Oregon Fire Code. And to do that, as you can see in the exhibit here, it breaks up the median quite a bit. So instead of the two long green lines that you saw before, it's a series of 5 smaller little islands that are a result of needing to be able to turn into all of the locations to the north, not just the streets, but also the emergency fire access points that Colin pointed out are dead ends. So when you open that up for the proper turning radius of a fire engine, you end up breaking it up quite a bit. And that's all we're trying to say, is it ends up not looking like the nice big contiguous median that was contemplated or what we're building in Mill Creek, because the one in Mill Creek, it's just driveways on either side, and some people will be unhappy about having to go down and hang a UE to get into their driveway, but it's not fire trucks. So, we're okay to build the median. I'm just not sure it's the best thing to do. It doesn't result in, I think, what the intention was initially. And since it is part of an arterial, the cost of the median would end up qualify for SDC reimbursement because it's an upsizing, because a local street wouldn't have a median. And as such, the city ends up paying for it, sort of. So, we're happy to build it. It doesn't look like what I think the intention was. That's all.
So what's the city's response on that?
So a number of staff discussed the median, beginning from when the pre-application conference had happened with the developer, up to the application and through providing a draft of the conditions to the applicant and through the planning commission. And the gist is that we don't have any understanding that fire code is administered by the fire district would require this many gaps in the median. That the bollard situation as it is in Boone's Crossing would not be interfered with by having a more continuous median.
But we don't have an option. We have to go with.
Oh, Colin, just for, if you don't mind, for clarity, could you pull up where, again, our understanding of where the median's going to be? We certainly appreciate the fact that obviously wherever you're going to have turn lanes, you can't have a median. But staff's understanding and belief, and this is after conversations with our fire marshal, that we're not going to be putting curb cuts at Sunflower or Dahlia, is that Dahlia? Daylily, excuse me, and Foxglove. Again, those are closed off and for fire access only. Staff has no desire, and we don't believe we're ever going to be putting cuts in there so that fire trucks can make left turns into streets and then stop and take bollards out and then finish their way through. If that should happen, we have a condition that says that would. So we think the median's going to look like this, continuous, except for the places where there are streets, where there's actually going to be left turns coming in and out of the road, if that helps. And there might be some, once fire truck turning movement's gone on there, they might be shortened a little bit and shaved on the edges, but that's different than having continuous left turns in and out. That's never been the intention of.
Chris, did the planning commission consider that and look at it and decide this issue?
That's exactly, this is one of the things we talked about. The figure you have is consistent with what the planning commission recommended as well. That staff believes is accurate as well.
I have some additional comments I think might assuage the mayor's concerns. The way the condition was and is worded, it also allows for a high degree of pavement within the median, and some in that pavement could be in the form of a mountable curb. What mountable curb is that it's a curb that slopes up gently, so vehicle wheels can kind of overlap it, especially a truck or fire truck. Mm-hmm. And the median allows for an additional break in the largest median that you see for some general purpose. It could be for city vehicles or a fire truck to make a U-turn. So the median is allowed to have a great degree of play and flexibility for civil engineering, for the applicant to be able to build it.
Well, we're happy to build a median, and we're glad that there's flexibility. We didn't know that fire access didn't mean turns from the street. So we assumed that fire access meant a fire truck coming from Boone's would need to turn left into the places where the bollards are. I'm now hearing that that's not a requirement or an intention of the city fire department. So this drawing is not, in fact, the way it would be. Okay. The only other area that might represent a little bit of a conflict is over on the far right by Foxglove, because there's an existing sanitary manhole that would be in the alignment with where the median would be. And we have to bring the sewer up Dahlia Street from the south up to Traverse and then head east to Foxglove. And so that section of that first green median would be sitting over the sewer line and over the manhole that exists. So again, with the flexibility that perhaps exists, we might be able to adjust where the sewer line we have to put in runs and would have to move that manhole to accommodate it. Or the city would just have a median sitting over the pipe, and if it ever needed maintenance, the median would have to get torn up, which is okay too, I guess.
I have two images that would address that concern. This one from Mill Creek Meadows. You can see the civil plans indicate a number of manholes, and there's one indicated here, which might appear to be a problem in the drawing, but it's not actually the case. As you'll see in a photo from another project in the metro area, the median can be built to accommodate the concern like so. So this happens to be Boone's Ferry Road in Lake Oswego. And you see here the median of this road with the close-up on the right, the little divot in the median precisely to accommodate the manhole.
That would address the manhole location, but that curb line would be basically over where the pipe is. So if you ever had to dig up the pipe, you'd end up having to dig it. It's really a moot point. We'll build the median however you want.
Okay, thank you.
So, and we just wanted to thank the city and the commission for working, and the council for working with us on this project. And we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you. It's good to hear. Any questions of the applicant?
Is there anything further that we need to know about the comment about the SDC reimbursement that we would have to make in order to build it the way we would like to have it built?
Well, first, I just want to see if someone else on the other side of the diocese would like to comment first.
Yeah, that gets negotiated during the civil plan review process. We look at all of the engineering that goes into the public improvements, and if there are improvements that we are requiring that are eligible for SEC credits, we assess those at that time.
Okay.
So it's not a decision that needs to be made by the council this evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Do
you.
we have any testimony by proponents? Those in favor of the project? Do we have anyone opposed to the project? So hearing none, I don't believe we need a rebuttal. So I will close the public hearing. Open up for discussion from the council. Any questions, concerns?
Just a little confused, but.
You want more clarification?
No, I had just been to all of the meetings, but never mind.
I'm going to ask you to make a motion here.
I know.
So I want you to be comfortable with that.
Okay. So now,
Now's a good time.
okay, all those in favor of,
I'll do that part.
oh, you do? Okay, I make a motion to,
To approve the annexation.
right. Okay.
Point of order, Commissioner.
The annexation of the 32.2 acres of territory known as the Schwenke Verzi property, okay?
Including the land use applications and the planning commission's conditions.
I have a slide with the draft motion if you'd like to see it.
I'd love it.
Why not?
Okay, give me a moment.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, sorry. I move to approve that Annex 24-2 Consolidated Applications Package with the conditions of approval as recommended by the Planning Commission in the council staff memo.
Thank you. Is there a
Mr.
second?
Mr. Mayor, apologies. Counselor Schaub, could I just request that we also include as an addition to your motion that you're directing staff to prepare and submit ordinances and a final land use decision for consideration at the next city council meeting? And if that's okay with you, you can just say affirmatively that that is an okay addition to your motion.
That is an okay addition to the motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You, now can I have a second of the motion and the addition?
I'll second.
Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Grijalva?
Yes.
Counselor Cornwell?
Yes.
Counselor Cantu?
Yes.
Counselor Schaub?
Yes.
Counselor Wilk?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Good presentation. Moving on, we do not have any general business, except is the planning commission, administrative land use actions. The only thing on there was the public arts and mural committee approval of the Bison art project. If anyone wishes to follow that up, they may. If not, then we'll move on to the city administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few things to report. I'd like to thank the city council for giving up your Saturday to come to the budget committee and hear about all of our proposed budgets for the next fiscal year. As take a look at all the departments. I don't think people realize that you vote when you get elected and you volunteer, you give up your Saturday, both the counselors and our volunteer budget committee members. So I do appreciate your time on that. It is a really important day for the city, even though it only happens once a year. It's really a critical thing that the city council does, the budget committee. And of course, the adoption of the budget is coming up. Another really important thing you have to be here for. Also on that day was city cleanup day. We had 110 community volunteers turn out on Saturday to participate in cleanup day. That's it seems it always falls on budget committee day, and I don't do that intentionally. I'm not sure how that happens. I do try to schedule it on a nice day though, and we managed to get that done this year.
Primarily working downtown area or where?
I think there's downtown, but I also think there were other areas in the city too, out towards.
There's
99.
several areas.
Yeah.
Different groups, so have to be downtown, that connected in on, and then we send other groups across town to different sections.
That's a great turnout.
It was very good. Today was the initiation of the first round of interviews for our police chief candidates. So that process is moving forward. I hope to have the review and interview process complete within the next 2 weeks or so. And so I think city council can look forward to a recommendation for me on the next police chief before too long.
Right.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to council reports. Councilor Wilk, welcome back from Texas.
Yeah, I'm still jet lagged, so I really have nothing more to report, although I have spent quite a bit of uncompensated time, I might add, with city staff, and they're just a pleasure to work with. And city is in good hands and doing a lot of great things.
Agreed. Thank you. Councilor Cantu?
I joked with Scott and the mayor that budget meeting was so much fun on Saturday. But truly, you guys do a tremendous job, and I've said to others, I still think of our town as a teeny little town, but then when I look at that budget, I'm like, wow, you guys are doing a lot of hard work here. So thanks to all the staff.
Well said. Councilor Grijalva?
No, I just appreciate all of the learning that I'm getting done in the few short months that I've been serving. But yes, good work.
A lot going on, a lot to learn.
Lots of things.
You
going
get there. Councilor Schaub?
I too commend the staff for a tremendous job on the budget. I know it takes each individual department. It's a lot of work, and you guys did an outstanding job. And I always appreciate Scott Derrickson's message at the beginning. Yes, Okay, and the other thing I wanted to report on is Counselor Wilk and I had met with our lobbyist, Zach Reeves, a couple weeks ago. And, you know, we just kind of wanted to get to know each other and, you know, figure out a scheduling of when he could report to us on what was happening at the legislature. So today I happened to talk to him just as, you know, guess what? There's a city council meeting and I know everybody's just so anxious to hear what's going on at the legislature. So here's an hour and a half report. So sit back and listen. Okay, actually, legislature is waiting for the quarterly revenue forecast, and then they can go on with their budget because they're in the budget session right now. So, you know, that's about it for that part of it. There's only one item of interest that was actually Mr. Reeves had commented on this the first time we had met, and that's on Senate Bill number 916. And that's unemployment benefits for union strikers. So we don't know what's going to happen with that other than it'll go to a public hearing and then, you know, the Senate Rules Committee will, you know, talk about it, but there's no vote right now. So if you're a union member and you want to strike, there's a possibility you could get unemployment benefits. And I don't know how you feel about that, and I'm not going to comment about it, but you know, that's one of the bills that's at our legislature. And believe me, there are many bills. Okay.
Councilor Shaw, if I might, I also talked to Zach today too. I was going to mention that to you and Councilor Wilk about one particular bill that we saw that dealt with land use carve-outs for UGB that supports housing. And so we had a conversation about that today. I'm happy to fill the legislative committee in on it another time.
We didn't talk about that.
No, I probably called after you did.
Question for Chris that a lot of community members have been asking me for some time. How many more housing units are we going to build? It just seems like we keep annexing farmland, and is this like the last annexation we're going to see? Are we going to see an end to all the additional housing, or is it just going to keep expanding? I mean, you mentioned to us there are like 800 units went in last year or coming in this year. I don't know, just mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, and we talked about this during the budget committee, and I think one of the comments I made was the development, the annexations, the subdivisions that we've seen over the past few years that you're seeing, now you're seeing actual construction housing going up. That, as far as we know on the planning side, which is the building side and the planning side, that's going to continue. We're going to see this continuation. I have every expectation that there will be 600 or 700 units built in the next calendar year moving forward. Next fiscal year is about what we're assuming. And then I think I mentioned to the budget committee, but there is an end to that, right? We're seeing these last final pieces like the one we saw this evening. That next to that is right. The UGB is right there. We're actually running out of residential land that's available, other than infill parcels and unusual sites. These larger pieces, they've really disappeared. And you've probably noticed we've seen a lot fewer annexations, even in the last 6 months, of any larger parcels. We just, 3 years ago, you just saw that wave of all the available residential lands were coming online, and now they're being built. And so we really are sort of hitting that point. I said we're kind of filling up. We really are filling up in terms of residential. That's an absolute fact.
I might just add, though, that cities are required to maintain a 20-year supply for residential housing. And the state of Oregon, its policy is to, from the governor's office, is to try to, that Oregon needs to develop 36,000 units of housing every year to keep up with housing needs for the next 20 years.
Yeah, that's correct.
Which is mostly going to occur in the Willamette Valley. And so as long as there is high demand for housing and the market will support that housing, we're going to see a lot more housing and growth in the Willamette Valley, just generally speaking, in the next 20 years. I think there are, what, 1 million people, I think they're projecting or so in the next so many years in Oregon. And that's what's driving the market. So yeah, we're already having conversations about, if the city can meet its housing needs, given the remaining land we have available within UGB or not, and how we're going to try to comply with that state requirement that we have 20-year supply, since we tend to build it out in 8 years as opposed to 20 years.
It is.
Well, I'm happy to talk. I'm happy to talk about that because I do talk to the school district about that. Chris can add on if
That's
he's
an
got more to
ongoing
add.
conversation that we have to have.
Well, the school district has told the city, they've done at least 2 population forecasts looking specifically at the needs for school and school space. And what we've been told, and what I think they came and told the city council about a year ago, was that they're seeing a decline in enrollment, and that there's classroom space available now. And that this year, they're seeing fewer high school students than they had last year. So even with the completion of Smith Creek imminent, there has not been a surge of students in the school. Based on the current projection and growth rates, school district isn't anticipating the need for a new school for 13 years. So I think it's reasonable to say there's a lot of growth. What's happening to the schools? It's a little counterintuitive to think that the schools are not seeing a crush of enrollment for a variety of trends nationally and locally in terms of people not having children. But also there's some anecdotal evidence to suggest that the houses being purchased in our subdivisions are from families that are here and they've not had access to housing. So the kids in the schools that are in these homes have already been in the school system. That's sort of the best information that we have. And if it changes, we'd be interested in that information from the school district if they start projecting something that's different than that. But we're not feeling a sense of urgency or crisis in terms of classroom availability at the Woodburn School District.
And it's just for what it's worth, it's not from lack of data getting to them. We coordinate very closely with the school district. In fact, they're notified of every single development application of the type that you just saw so that they chime in. And if you look really closely in your staff reports, you'll find in there a letter from the school district who comments on every annexation that comes in. And it's asking whether or not they believe there's a capacity issue for the residential housing come in. But not just that, we actually had one of my planners on their long range facility capacity board, I think was the name of that board, which essentially does this. They do this long range plan. Do we have capacity in our system? Are we anticipating the right amount of residential and construction activity in the city? So the numbers that they were using came right from our office, which are about as accurate as you can get. They crunched them and the results were something you heard Scott talking about.
And if I could just say, it's good that the school's keeping up with that. I recall when we moved to Woodburn, Woodburn had year-round schools because they didn't have the capacity at that time. So
right.
With the building of schools, they seem to be in pretty good shape. I'm glad they're monitoring.
So this is a conversation that we have to have periodically with all facets of the city, infrastructure, streets, police, fire district is growing. As we grow, we need to make sure that all areas of the city grow with us. And that's our job. Anything else, Kelsey?
Well, the train safety.
That's a workshop at the high school.
I'll invite Jesse up to talk about that particular item.
Yeah, so just a quick follow-up on some of the, obviously, we've been in front of the council several times about train safety. So school district is in my communications with the school district, talking about our communication with them. They are currently working through running the Operation Lifesaver trainings for the elementary schools. They want to get through all their elementary schools this school year. So that is a great positive to hear out of the school district as well. And then Zariah, from our staffing perspective, from the city perspective, is putting on a workshop on the 13th at the high school at 6 p.m. And that will be focused more on kind of the family unit as a whole, as well in partnership with Operation Lifesaver. So about more train safety options there as well. And we have invited, we are looking for opportunities for them to also participate in our different city events across the summer.
In that regard of train safety, the city has received a price estimation for the installation of fencing that we've talked about on city property. Some 800 feet of fencing, Curtis, I think it was. It's about $100,000 as we move forward with trying to get that project done.
Thank you. That's okay. All I have is today we being the city of Woodburn received notice from the state that our request to increase our urban growth boundary by 237 acres of industrial property was accepted. So good job to everybody. In a short time, I think less than 2 years that this went through, a lot of people in this room had a lot to do with that. So thank you all for that. Yeah, Renata, definitely looking at you. But Chris, thank you. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moving second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're out of here. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.